Hello.
From 2D to 3D. It's a transition that's not always made so smoothly. Some franchises have managed to pull it off flawlessly, replicating the feel of the original 2D games without suffering from the lack of quality game design. Many franchises don't survive the leap too well. Some don't even bother trying. It's an intimidating decision to bring your IP into the third dimension, and because of that, Rayman 2 wasn't always intended to be a 3D game.
You must really love me because you didn't pick any shockingly terrible games. Looks like some people appreciate my video.
Rayman 2 was originally intended to be a 2D side-scroller much like its predecessor. It was planned for release on the PlayStation, with the Jaguar version getting the boot in favor of the Sega Saturn this time around. This 2D build of the game played a lot like the first Rayman game, though Rayman would start the game with all of the powers he obtained in Rayman 1, and then obtaining even more on top of that. Come to think of it, Banjo-Tooie did the exact same thing. However, by the time of development, the platforming genre was currently popularized by 3D games, games like Mario 64, Crash Bandicoot, and Spyro the Dragon, so developing a 2D game at this time likely wouldn't draw that much interest. The spark happened in '96 when the developers of Rayman saw the first Crash game at E3. This made them realize the potential a platforming game could have in the third dimension. It was then decided to scrap this 2D prototype of Rayman in favor of making a 3D platforming game.
One of the coolest yet most jarring sequels in video game history, not just for the jump from 2D to 3D, but by going from this happy-go-lucky Billy bollocks to...
But there was one little problem. At this time, they have never made a 3D game before, and they didn't know if they could make a good 3D Rayman game. So, they didn't. Instead, they made Tonic Trouble, a 3D platformer released for the N64. By developing this title, Ubisoft was able to test the engine that they would then use to build Rayman 2. Once they were comfortable with working in a 3D space and confident in their abilities to do so, Rayman 2 began redevelopment as a 3D title. Despite being originally intended for the PlayStation and the Sega Saturn, Ubisoft Montpellier turned to the N64 this time around for the basis of development. It was also ported to PC, releasing just days after the N64 version, with the Dreamcast port seeing a release months later. It wasn't until a year later that Rayman 2 would see a port on the PlayStation 1, the very console that Rayman owes most of his success to. Poor Sony got the short end of the stick this time around, as the PlayStation version of Rayman 2 is lacking chunks and chunks of levels. A year they had to make this port, and what do? Add voice acting?
Rayman?
While the original had mumbo-jumbo accompanied by text, kinda Banjo-Kazooie style,
You wanted me more this too, Callan
the PS1 version was fully voice acted.
Not really. I feel weak and my powers have disappeared.
So they added voice acting.
Yes, I need to make this clear. All those years ago, I played the PS2 version of Rayman 2, Rayman Revolution, and I am fully aware that Rayman 2, The Great Escape on PS1 is not the ideal way to play the game, but, you know, it's a game on my favourite console, my favourite thing to come out of France. I think it was the perfect match for the channel.
But they removed half the game. Not a good sacrifice if you ask me. I don't know if it had something to do with the sound files taking up all the disk space, but either way, wasn't worth it. While the PlayStation was in tears over this butchered port, the Dreamcast was having a blast with its definitive version of Rayman 2. The Dreamcast version was left completely intact from the N64 version. It simply had a higher frame rate, smoother graphics, and some extra minigames. For this video, I'll be taking a look at the Dreamcast version, since it's pretty much the definitive version of the game. Unless you want to count all the console ports and the mobile ports, and I'm not getting into those. Like, for real this time, I'm not getting into those. We're doing this again, aren't we?
You'll get over it.
Years and years later, I'm now a proud owner of the Sega Dreamcast version of the game. So why don't we check it out? I can never get used to how loud the Dreamcast gets when it reads a disc. It sounds like the thing's going to explode. Unlike the N64 version of Rayman 2, the Dreamcast version also supports widescreen. Rayman 2 boasts a radically darker tone than Rayman 1 did, as the story starts off with a slave ship that has captured and imprisoned the majority of Rayman's people.
Family fun for everyone.
We then see Rayman's best friend Glowbox being dragged along and thrown into a cell with Rayman. Reunited with his friend, Rayman jumps for joy, but that joy doesn't last. Things look bleak, the world is enslaved, and Rayman has been robbed of all of his powers. Globox brings good news as Lee the Fairy, I guess they just forgot about Batilla the Fairy and made up a new one, gave Globox a silver lum, an energy core that will restore some of Rayman's power, giving him the ability to escape. Hence the name Rayman 2, The Great Escape.
Although I would quite like it if Globox stops... Globox, what are you... Globox, stop making that noise. You're enjoying whatever this is far too much. So we escape out of a hatch and collect every single red lum on the way down the chute because I'm a boss, and then Globox accidentally knocks us off the ship as we crash land in the middle of a forest. A forest? Forest! Yes! This is more like the Rayman I know. Sorry, Rayman. Everybody loves Rayman. Look, they even have the, these things, you know, from the first game. The blue testes beast.
Once off of the prison ship, Globox is then separated from Rayman. This is where the first level starts, and we quickly become familiar with the 3D world of Rayman.
Rayman is slightly delirious after the fall, but now he has a goal, to find his best buddy Globox and save the world afterwards, but we can't spend all day looking for him, so how are we gonna find him?
Globox! No, don't play it again. We don't need to see that again. What the f*** was that?
You'll start out with the majority of the powers you obtain in Rayman 1, helicopter hair and all. Instead of throwing his fists, Rayman now shoots small energy spheres that can bounce off of walls. It's cool, but I honestly miss the concept of Rayman throwing his hands through the air to punch. I mean, what good is having hands detached from your body if you can't throw them through the air? It's not long before we're introduced to another brand new Rayman character, Murphy. He's a frog fairy thing, I think? He'll drop on by every now and then to explain game mechanics and give you tutorials. Cages, while containing the enslaved Electoons in Rayman 1, now contain lums, the energy fairies that make up the heart of the world. There are 1,000 lums in all, scattered across the entire world by Razorbeard. This is the bastard that enslaved the entirety of Rayman's people along with Rayman himself. This guy's a much worse villain than Mr. Dark could have ever hoped to be. Razorbeard destroyed the heart of the world, making all peace and stability cease to exist. If Rayman wants to restore it, he's gonna have to collect all of these lums. You can find yellow lums scattered all throughout each level. You'll need a certain amount of them to access certain stages later in the game, so make sure you pick these guys up when you see them. Yellow lums aren't the only kind of lum in Rayman 2, as there's also the red lums that'll restore Rayman's health, along with the returning purple lum that Rayman can once again use to swing across large gaps. While searching for Globox, Rayman then runs into some of his kids, who tell Rayman that the Robo-Pirates have taken Lee the Fairy away.
Oh look, it's Globox's kids. I better be quick with finding their dad. I don't want social services coming over and swallowing the children. I'll find him in a second though, kids. First, let me show you my new trick. Yeah, pretty cool, right? No, you're crying. Okay, no need to be rude, you little I'm not saving your dad now, go away. I suppose we'll put that plan on hold for the time being and rescue these guys instead, the teensies, who are just kind of there, honestly, but they can open portals to different levels though, so they aren't entirely useless.
A disorganized group of little dudes that cannot figure out which one of them is king. Rayman 2 may have a darker toned story, but it still has a lot of quirky and adorable humor. They then open up a place called the Island of Doors. This is what serves as the hub world. The Dreamcast version is quite a bit different, as in other versions it's known as the Hall of Doors, and while it still takes form of a Mario World styled map, it's very different visually. Honestly, I much prefer the Hall of Doors from other versions than the Island of Doors from the Dreamcast version. It's just a lot more visually pleasing and interesting to me. In the second level, you'll experience the game's combat system for the very first time.
And then we head for a pirate hideout nearby to find Lee the Fairy in order to get some more of my powers back. But we need to be stealthy about it, so why don't we do it with, I don't know, the best sneaking music of all time? They should seriously use this in more video games.
A patrolman called in a suspicious vehicle, signs of foul play. See what you can find out. Come on, Phelps.
Got it. Okay, I'm ready to go.
Unlike Rayman 1, fights are few and far in between. Instead of having enemies that Rayman can just knock out with a couple of punches and be well on his way, enemies engage Rayman in a one-on-one battle. The Robo-Pirates, Razorbeard's army of robotic henchmen, will be your primary opponents. You'll also encounter piranhas, eyeball creatures, snakes, and zombie chickens. Zombie chicken.
What was my mother?
You're able to lock onto them with the shoulder button, allowing you to dodge and jump to avoid oncoming fire as you fire back at them. It's an okay battle system. It's not very in-depth, and it can get boring after quite some time. Though again, fights are infrequent, so this doesn't really happen. Along with the new battle system, there is a lot of new abilities Rayman can now perform. Rayman's now able to climb various surfaces such as vines and whatnot. Even if vines are on the ceiling, yeah, you can still climb on them. There's a lot of little things like this added to the game mechanics to increase the number of ways Rayman can navigate the world. This creates a lot of variety to the gameplay. Variety. Now there's a scary word. If you've watched my Tai 3 video a while ago, you probably know all too well that the ambition to add variety to a game can ultimately lead to a boring, mess, disorganized title. Luckily, Rayman 2 does it exceptionally well. The developers of Rayman understand all too well that variety in a game should be confined to the same core genre. So that doesn't mean, hey, we're getting bored of jumping, let's add an airplane stage.
No way, man! No! No! No, no, no! No!
Don't play it again. We don't need to see that again. What the was that?
Give me some vines to climb on, give me some barrels to dodge, give me something that still involves navigating an obstacle course. Like rockets with legs! But guess what? We're not shooting at dudes, we're still dodging stuff. Hey Chrome Studios, you probably should have looked at Rayman 2 as a core example, not Sonic Adventure 2.
Oh, shut up!
Blame the bearded freak over there!
Either way, enough about that. We found Lee trapped by a machine, so we need to blow up the machine with a tiny exploding barrel puzzle, and then voila, new power-up time, baby. We can now swing from pink lums, cool and we get our big quest laid out bare for us, you know, alongside finding Glowbox, but we forgot all about him. We need to find 4 ancient masks to wake up an ancient creature with enough power to wipe out the pirates forever.
Have you ever heard of Polycus?
What?
Polycus?
Excuse me?
Polycus?
It's always really redundant when sequels to games make you obtain the exact same power-ups and items that you've already obtained in games prior. Luckily though, in Rayman 2, you'll have them all yet again by only the 2nd level. A couple of temporary power-ups make a return, such as the Golden Fist that'll make Rayman's attack stronger until he takes 3 hits, and the ability to fly, which will last 1 entire level in the game. There's a lot of new stuff too, like powder kegs, which Rayman can carry around and use to blow open doors and destroy machines. Rayman's also able to throw the keg up into the air, allowing him to attack without, you know, making it blow up. This way, Rayman can fend off enemies while trying to get the keg somewhere. Returning are those giant purple plums that you used to ride around in Rayman 1. You're now able to carry them in a similar fashion to powder kegs. Just like the first game, you're able to land them on the heads of enemies to create a platform, and you're also able to ride them over hazards. While it was usually spikes and water in Rayman 1, you'll mostly use plums to get across molten lava in Rayman 2. What are these things made out of? I'd hate to see someone eat them. I highly doubt their stomach acid would be able to digest it.
On to the next level then. The teens are going to open it up for us since we've collected enough yellow lums in the stages. And Rayman is totally out of it. I think the Tinsies are giving him war flashbacks. On we go to the marshes towards the first mask, but we can't get over the swamp without a helping hand, so we rescue our good friend Sam the Snake, who tells us to grab his scarf to surf our way over. No sweat, I've got this. Go! Ball.
Rayman 2 boasts a lot of high-speed action segments, the first being a level where you'll get to jet ski through a swamp. In some stages you'll get to ride a shell, which is a missile with legs that seems to think it's a horse.
I must admit, I never remember having any trouble controlling these things on the PS2 when I was younger, and maybe I'm wrong, but I swear the controls on these things in the PS1 version are god-awful. You bounce all over the place, and turning is so bloody heavy that you can barely move around obstacles that require immediate reactions to, and barely keep on the stage in the first place when you want to turn back onto the path in case you slide too far off the edge, but the momentum will just keep carrying you off anyway.
Stages where you get to ride these things are awesome. They're really tough though, since the shell will explode if you bump around too much or, you know, run head-on into something. And remember those powder kegs? Well, what happens if we bring one near this torch over here? Go! These stages are similar to the shell stages as they're fast-paced and, you know, you'll explode if you run into something. though the shell is a little bit more durable than the kegs are, so when you're flying on the keg, try to be a little bit more careful. There's also a lot of slide segments that'll involve Rayman sliding down a large slope, making jumps and dodging obstacles. One of my favorite stages is called the Precipice. You'll find yourself frantically running forward as the stage behind you crumbles and falls into the abyss below as the pirate ships send a relentless onslaught of cannonballs your way. It's total mayhem, and you feel so badass running through this obstacle course that's constantly falling apart. Don't fall in the water here, though, because it's an instant death. Wait a minute. Why does water kill Rayman? He clearly demonstrated in other levels that he is able to swim. Oh, okay, piranhas. That seems to be a running excuse as to why you can't swim anywhere in this game. Can't swim in the swamp? Piranhas. Can't swim in the pond? Piranhas. Can't swim in the ocean? Piranhas. Yeah, that's right. You can't swim in the ocean because the entire thing is infested with piranhas. A part of this game that used to scare me as a kid is called the Cave of Bad Dreams. Early in the game, during the marsh level, there's a detour you can take that'll take you to Jano, a creepy eyeball creature. He tells you that you're not allowed to access the place he's guarding unless you know the name of it. Later in the game, you'll run into Rayman's large, burly friend Clark, who's been poisoned. He tells you to go to the Cave of Bad Dreams to get the antidote.
So how do you not know what you ate if you know exactly where the cure is? Also, the cure is where? The
Cave of Bad Dreams.
And how do you know there's a cure there? Why would you expect anyone to go there? Why did you eat the thing that you know there's a cure for? Surely that means you knew it'd be dangerous. And yes, I know he's looking for an elixir of life, not a specific cure for a specific illness, but still, whatever he ate was so bad he was going to die and needs an elixir of life from the kingdom of the dead to fix everything.
Am I the only one that finds this entire situation extremely strange?
Anyway, as you do, Rayman needs to visit the land of the dead. Family fun for everyone. And yes, on the PS2 version in particular, the Cave of Bad Dreams was horrible for my younger self. I mean, you saw a taster of it at the start of this video. However, in the PS1 version with the cheap voice acting, we go from this to this.
Your fucking ends here!
Rayman, grow up. I've seen scarier stuff in my toilet.
Now, having learned the name, Jano lets you in, though he warns you that you'll have to find the antidote before he does, and if he catches up to you, he'll show you no mercy. There's nothing really that scary about the stage itself until you get to the part when you actually run into Jano. You're almost there, and you see him wretchedly pull himself out of the ground before deciding that he wants you for lunch. We then get this awesome slide segment from the point of view of inside his mouth. During the entire slide, you'll see the back of his teeth dripping and drooling with saliva as he thirsts for Rayman's flesh. This is so badass, but it scared the crap out of me the first time my mom rented this game for me. Actually, it scared me so much that I just straight up stopped playing the game until we brought the game back to the store. It wasn't until I actually owned the game a year later in my life that I would beat this level, with the moral support of my cousin who held my hand the whole way down there.
Luckily, the chase down the slimy slide while the drooling jaws of the cave monster want to eat you is still very imaginative and badass on both versions of the game, so that's fine. Not much else going on in this cave alongside the first major ball moving sections, which are a nice change of pace and not too frustrating because the balls respawn where you were if you accidentally throw them off or they fall off the edge of the arena. So instead, I'll just talk about more of the gameplay generally. There's a reason this game has been ported 78 times and is globally adored as one of the greatest 3D platformers of all time. It's really damn fun to play. I don't think it's one of the best, good lord, but it is a really fun time. It's like a slower paced Crash Bandicoot with more open spaces, more hidden areas and battles with projectiles, and that's all fine, but it's extremely rudimentary and it has no surprises up its sleeves. Yes, there are a few things hidden in corners of levels, but there's no real major exploration here to justify the wide spaces. I mean, even the original game had massive spaces in the 2D parts to justify that kind of exploration. And the levels are surprisingly linear on the PS1 version. And linearity isn't a bad thing at all, but it's never as dense or as busy as something like Crash Bandicoot and nowhere near to a 3D interpretation of the original game. The controls, I must admit, are fantastic, and it certainly can be a challenge in places, but a few more things going on in the game would have been appreciated, especially since this is probably one of the easiest 3D platformers I've ever played. Someone at Ubisoft must have tried the original game again and realised, oh wait, we made a load of bull here, and they felt so bad about it that they tried their hardest to make the sequel as forgiving as possible, because boy, it shows. Not just getting through levels normally either, finding all the lums and caged creatures isn't difficult at all, since you just need the most basic of path diversions in order to find them. They all get found in the same basic way, slightly off the beaten path, and everything is a little too cut and dry to be that interesting for 100% completion. Dying has no consequence at all from frequency of checkpoints and the ridiculous amount of red health lums everywhere, along with no lives to worry about or continues. And even if you lose all of your health and game over, you mostly just load up at the last checkpoint that you always do, like if you just fell into some lava or something. Like, what's the point? But hey, back to the story. Look, we beat the monster, got the life brew, gave it to the total imbecile, and he nearly eats us whole. I can smell your breath from here, you weird man. At least he's okay now and can smash through wooden barriers that we couldn't get through before. Go on then, Clark. Go, Clark. Clark. Go, Clark. Go. Oh, there we go.
Once at the bottom, you'll actually have a boss fight with Jano. After you defeat him, he offers you his entire hoard of treasure. If you accept, and yeah, you actually have a choice in the matter, you'll unlock an alternate ending featuring a very fat Rayman relaxing on an island in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, you obviously choose to take the antidote instead. The boss fights in Rayman aren't really much to write home about. The only one I'd consider great is the final boss. One of the bosses you don't even fight, you just jump on his head and he walks into the lava. I don't even know if you could consider that a boss. But the game presents him like he is one, so I guess he is? Regardless, each level leading up to the boss never fails to be a great time. Each one is so unique and special in its own way, constantly delivering platforming goodness without suffering from redundancy. It's pretty crazy that every single level in Rayman 2 offers something so radically different, yet it always manages to be really fun. I think it's safe to say that there isn't a single level in Rayman 2 that I actually don't like.
Maybe this version of the game will give me something that the PS2 version doesn't a little bit later on. I mean, maybe it's got something going on that I'd like.
Okay, family fun forever. No, this isn't okay, Rayman. This thing and the music accompanying it was enough to make me never touch Rayman again for a long time. That sounded really wrong and I'm taking it back. I mean, nowadays it's not that bad at all, but to a young mind, the sheer panic induced from the score and the terrified, stilted, jittery animations of this multi-eyed freak spider climbing after you faster than the speed of light is enough to make you question if the escape was really that great to begin with.
Rayman 2 has 19 levels total, 2 of which are bonus levels and the last being the final boss fight. The PlayStation version of the game only has 17 levels. That and entire chunks of levels are missing completely. Like I mentioned before, this version is fully voice acted, but it's simply just not worth it for the axed content. One redeeming fact about the PS1 version is that you can unlock and play a beta build of the original 2D version of Rayman 2. You can unlock this by collecting 90% of the yellow lums and then completing the game. In fact, the PS1 version only has 800 of the 1000 lums. Well, 1000 becomes 999 after a cutscene where Razorbeard eats one. That barbarian. There is still a way to find that 1000th lum though, and finding it is not easy. In one of the final levels, the Tomb of the Ancients, after climbing to the top of this wall here, jump off and helicopter all the way around this corner. Oh my god, how was anybody on Earth supposed to even find that? They hit that thing really well. In here is a giant skull with yellow lum number 1000 in one of its eye holes. In the 3DS version, they completely ruined this secret because this little spiderweb net here you're supposed to bounce off of to get it, they forgot to make it so you can bounce off of it. So you just can't get the yellow lum unless you activate some glitch where you get hit by an enemy and bounce up there.
Oh god, we're at the end of the game now, and it's probably the hardest part of the game, with a final gauntlet of tricky sliding, followed by a multi-axis flying section, which I thought was really cool and challenging, especially with all the spinning around you can do manually. Then we throw some bombs at Razorbeard. It's like a razor on a beard.
The final level consists of the most difficult and challenging slide stage yet, followed by one last shell level. But this time, this thing can fly. Rayman 2 really knows how to go out with a bang because this final shell segment rocks so hard. In the final fight against Razorbeard, you'll battle against the Grulgoth, a giant mech that Razorbeard literally purchased from a guy minutes before Rayman stormed his pirate ship. Once Razorbeard is defeated after an awesome final boss fight,
and then the final flight-based battle commences. And luckily the final boss of the game is not only the hardest bit of the game, but also the best fight, and tests everything from your speed, reactions, and extremely brief puzzle solving with a particular type of missile you need to use against him, which I gotta admit took me a while to figure out what the game wanted me to do. I'm not embarrassed to admit that. But it ain't too bad really. I mean, you know what they say, when the world is in danger, you must
Leave it to Ray, leave it to Ray, leave it to Ray.
Rayman frees his people and they celebrate the new peaceful world that Rayman has brought back.
And after all of that, Rayman 2, The Great Escape, gets the salvage today. Lovely.
All in all, it's really not that hard to understand why a lot of people call Rayman 2 the greatest 3D platformer game that isn't Mario. It's crazy how well the transition from 2D to 3D actually went. I'd highly recommend the Dreamcast version over all other versions, though the N64 and PC versions are good too. Just make sure you avoid the PS1 version. Unless you don't mind not playing half of the game.
It may be far too easy for the most part, but the brilliant controls, soundtrack, and memorable world you run and jump through is enough for me to see why this game is considered a classic, and I'd rather replay this one over Rayman 1 any day of the week. I will be the first to admit, however, that this is not the ideal way to play Rayman 2. My money still goes to Rayman Revolution on PS2. But for everyone telling me how awful this port of Rayman 2 was, when there's like 50 ports that exist, I don't know, guys. I didn't think it was that bad at all. Have you ever played Rayman 3D? I mean, the PS1 version has its moments of bull, but it's not that bad at all. It's pretty good. It does have tons of cut content though. Cut levels, cut story scenes, all sorts of stuff. And even Revolution gives you all of this within an open connected world, bridging it all together, and even purchasable upgrades, and more enemies, secrets, tons more. Basically all I'm saying is if you want to see why Rayman 2 is so beloved and ported a million different times, just play any other version than this one. There are better versions of the game to play. So, yeah.
So after not only a 2D masterpiece, but also a 3D masterpiece, comes Rayman 3, Hoodlum Havoc, for the GameCube, PS2, and Xbox. Does this even hold a candle to the first two?
I just want to be clear here. And another thing is that you people should be smart enough to know the following. Yes, I have a very love and most interesting gaming moments I had with Rayman 2. But you know what I think the version is the best way to go? The Sega Dreamcast of all systems. Well, that and the PS2, but... Well, actually, that's not true. I think every version of Rayman 2 is as good as it is. May not look exactly the way it is, and may not be what it should be between the different ports in such a way, but Rayman 2 is still the best game. How do you think I got into gaming in the first place? Because I've always thought about him when I played Rayman Raving Rabbids. And he still is very new to me when I was young, until I realized he had his own games. And I was interested. I was very interested in trying his games, since I know they were more interesting the way I see it. It's a masterpiece, and I really think it should be appreciated more often. No thanks to those Ubisoft punks. Sure, it would be nice to have Rayman 2 for some remade games once in a while, such as Switch 2 and PS5, but it really wouldn't hurt for having some kind of Dreamcast remake for all the modern consoles every once in a while. You know what I want the most? Rayman to cross over with Mario, I dare say. Rayman to cross over with Mario. That is all.
The end.